8,000 people, where we are going to have our resellers who will be launching SolidWorks 2020 with our flagship event name called Innovation Day. With that, can I have Sujit Jain, Vice President Strategy and Business Development, SolidWorks, who will talk about engineers and what SolidWorks has done for it.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so actually the computers really came about, the IC chips. And I'm going to talk about it. Anyway, that's a little bit about me. Before I go into the 2020, I want to kind of tell you as corporate, as Dassault Systems, as SolidWorks, what do we think about and where our priorities are. And I think it's important as we talk about 2020. So engineering, engineering, as you guys all know, is about solving big problems, and we're having great ideas. We have some examples of that. So I want to take you through a little bit about mathematician Bézier, who sort of is credited in 1965 starting CAD. And CAD allowed to do stuff digitally. And it propelled engineering to do a whole lot more. And then we had we've had the modern planes, as you will. And Dassault Systems came about at that time as well. And it squeezed the number of engineering years, so in 30 years we achieved quite a bit in the digital age. I mean, you had flying planes, and we had a lot of things going on. And of course, computer helped. So from paper we moved into the computers, and we started to do drawings and other things. And then if you think about information age, sort of the computer revolutions, around in 1965 and so on, the Moore's law came about, right? The IC chips getting smaller and smaller, so you could fit in so much of information onto smaller and smaller computers. So smartphones came about, and today we talk about the automated cars. And engineering moved along nicely, because it came, you start to do multi-physics, so not just sort of graphical design, but you also start to do sort of virtually create the product so that you can do structural tests. Just whatever will happen in field, in the actual life of a product, you could do on the computer and simulate all of that. And today, I'd say, I just put in the number of 2015, we're calling it the automation age, where everywhere you turn around, you hear about artificial intelligence. A couple of years ago, IoT was the big thing, big data, all of those kinds of things. And what simply it meant, or it means to us, is that the data is getting connected. You can do so much more if all the data of whatever you're doing is all in one place, because you can do data mining, you can make some intelligence out of it, connected, use artificial intelligence, all of that. So the data has to be connected, and people also have to be connected. One of the main things which I always talk about is the human part of it, because in all these technologies, technology moves faster and people are left behind. But if they're connected, if the information is there with everybody, then people can catch up with the technology, and it's not only for the few, right? So the massively technology is available to everybody, not just the people who only going to big colleges or big companies. It's available to everybody. And to do all of that, to connect this digital, both the data and the people, you do need some sort of a platform. And this is why, for us, engineering 4.0, if you will, or the version of industry 4.0 for us as a company is really what we will call as 3D experience platform, and you're going to hear more about it. So it's really, in very simplistically, it's kind of this automation age, connecting people and data together on a single platform. That's our sort of a payback to engineering through the 3D experience platform. So exponential change, right? We talked a lot about it, from first flight in 1903, Wright brothers, to landing on moon in 1969, 66 years, right? A lot of technology changes happened. This is, anybody can take a guess as what's on the left-hand side, anybody? 1965. It's a computer, right? It's called PDP-8, DEC. Size of a refrigerator, in those days it costed $18,000, which is close to $180,000 if you were to buy it today. Today you can buy an Apple Watch, version 5. Anybody has a version 5 of Apple Watch? No, not yet. has much more power, a few $100s, right? So in 50 years, technology moves, right? And a lot of it is because things are getting smaller, becoming cheaper, affordable, all of that. Now, there's something which happens in this world which is beyond this economics as well. Not everything is about getting cheaper. A lot of engineering and the jobs people are going to do is not just about economics and everything getting cheaper. Those are there, absolutely. But there's something beyond economics. There are things happening which sort of cause a concern about the survival, if you will, as humans. So UN, United Nations, has come up with these 17 grand challenges for the human race, if you will. Clean water, etc., sustainability. So I've tried to club them into these 4 big categories. Sustainability, so you have cleaner methods of energy production. There are others in there, but I put one of them, so solar, wind, nuclear, etc. This is everywhere across the world, those challenges are coming in. Security, because as you are connected on a single platform or in different places, there are a lot of cyber threats and there are a lot of devices. So that's becoming an important part. No matter what we do, world is not a utopian society. There are people who want to move ahead of others, so cybersecurity becomes important. Health, of course, access to clean water, diseases, a lot of stuff happening in medicine, and then quality of life. And in India especially, you hear a lot about smart cities and modernizing the infrastructure is very important, and it improves quality of life, right? So no matter whether you're very well off or not so much, you have to travel through the same infrastructure. So if you can make everything better, it kind of goes. So it's sort of bringing it back. So I'm talking about engineering. I'm talking about what motivates for us to create jobs and the types of problems we're going to solve with economics, beyond economics. Our belief at Dassault Systems is that the virtual world can extend the real world. So whatever you see physically, that you can do all these virtual things because it will extend your thinking, your innovation to help solve these problems. And the new world is about, for anybody who's a little bit into math, the idea here is that the gap between the real and the virtual is reducing. To solve these engineering problems, if we can reduce this gap, if we had this magic remote control and when you had a concept in mind and boom, you can get to a product fast. Those, as whether it's economics or beyond economics, we need those kinds of things in there. And digital, doing things in virtual can help you get there faster and faster. So that's our belief. This is what we are motivated by. And at SolidWorks, as you saw, we have over 6 million users now doing these kinds of things. Right, so and they're in all industries, from consumer products to industrial machinery and all of that. Now, a lot of the 6 million, more than half of these are in education. So this is the workforce of the future, right? So SolidWorks has a lot of that, and as a company now, you heard John Fowler talk about 2020. When we look at SolidWorks within the big Dassault ecosystem, within the bigger of this engineering ecosystem, our priorities are build on these exponential technologies. I'm going to touch upon that. Exponential technologies such as what has happened in the 66 years of going from, first flight to landing on moon, or taking the big computer and putting it down on your iWatch, Apple Watch. These are exponential technologies, and we want to make sure that we can deliver those to our customers, packaged inside our tools so we can do more. Of course, engaging with the workforce of the future. I've talked about it. Over 3 million of our customers are in the education. These are students. And then, of course, foster entrepreneurship and innovation, because that's the future. So let's touch upon very quickly on each one of these things. I'm going to touch upon a few of the technologies which we are working on. One is additive. You must be living under a rock if you've not heard of 3D printing. 3D printing from plastics to metal is becoming more and more popular. And today, more and more, that gap to zero or going from virtual to real, there are exponential technologies which we work on, which bring the multi-physics into play. This is where you're combining different physical domains into one, because the world is connected. You know, the products and the life and everything is sort of connected. So we have things here. You see examples of car and the fluid flow and the ergonomic design. You're seeing a heart in there where you can do life science, because if you can have a virtual model of your heart, you can do so much study, and not just the virtual model of the heart, but your heart, right? So if you go to a doctor tomorrow and they know how your heart is, and if there are some complications, they can actually do that and study well. So that's where the world is going, right? Connecting all of these together. By the way, back up here, probably it's not going to back, I wanted to point out one of the gentlemen in the picture. We do a lot of work. Not sure why it's not playing. Yep, there we go. So augmented virtual reality, I think there's an example set up here too. This is another one of those things which is reducing the gap between the real and the virtual. PMR, actually Shantanu, you talked about the experiences, you know, it's very important. And when we talk about this, reducing the limit going between real and virtual to zero, augmented reality and virtual reality helps. So this is another technology. Everything we hear about, a lot of your products, a lot of the customers who are designing products are all smart products, connected products. So having no walls between mechanical and electrical engineers or electronics engineers is a very important priority for us, and we want to take advantage of those technologies and deliver to artificial intelligence. You know, what does it mean for what we do, right? You hear about artificial intelligence all the time, about making, you know, machine learning and things like that. So we are doing our own things, and there's some features listed, and these are the kinds of things which will be coming in SolidWorks. So this leads me to, I mentioned very briefly, in the automation age, you need a platform which connects both people and data in one place, especially for engineering, for business, for what you want to do. That's what our foray is into this future of engineering through the 3D Experience platform. And I will talk about what SolidWorks is doing for that particular thing. And you remember, you go from doing things, multi-physics, all of that, from a desktop into a cloud-based connected product, right? Where the data is all in one place, right? And so now imagine no sending of data to different places. Because the data is one place, you can do analysis of it, you can do data mining of it, you can do different types of simulation, all of that in one place. So today, I'd say for India specifically, we have talked about 3D Experience works in other parts of the world. So I'll say today, we're also announcing that we are bringing the power of the 3D Experience platform, right? So this is one platform connecting data and people with the simplicity of what you've seen in SolidWorks, easy to use. We are bringing those two together as a 3dexperience.works portfolio. So we'll be leveraging all the Dassault brands technology. Shantanu and PMR talked about the 12 brands we have. And initially we are talking about design, which is coming from SolidWorks. We've been doing more than design. All the simulation power of a brand called Similia, a product called Abacus, you might have heard of. This gets into the multi-physics, some of the things I was showing earlier. All of that technologies, all the manufacturing. Last year we had made an acquisition in the ERP domain for manufacturing, a company called IQMS, providing ERP, sort of a connected world again for manufacturing. So we are bringing that as well. And then manage or planning, this is all the data management which happens. So all of that you will start to see, and this will be a growing portfolio over time, but it will bring the power of 3D experience with the simplicity of work, and more to come around that. We have some few products already launched around this, and more are coming. So it's more of SolidWorks type of products coming into this connected digital framework. So that's 3dexperience.works, that's new. And then of course, you already heard John Paulo talk about the three main themes we have, the connected ecosystem, the streamlined workflow, and the improved performance. And of course, SolidWorks as a product has existed for over 20 years. with over 6 million users. So it's a product which works very well. And every year we look at things which we need to, we, as John Paulo said in his video message as well, we talk to a lot of customers, right? We have so many. And what are their priorities? Because every second lost of productivity, you multiply by 6 million, I don't know, I haven't done the math to see how many hours and days or years that turns into. So, if we make one command slow, it has a huge impact in the ecosystem. So it's very important. The performance is very important there. Streamlining workforce is all about reducing the gap between a concept to reality. And then connected ecosystem, as I mentioned earlier, it's about connecting people and data. So all of those are there in the SolidWorks platform, SolidWorks 2020, and then connecting it to 3D experience is our priority. Let me quickly touch upon the workforce of the. This is an important slide. Whether you agree with everything exactly 65% or not, this is important that everything which kids are studying right now, so a kid entering in the primary school, first grade is today. Whether you agree, whether it's 10 years or 15 years, we all know that that's where we are going, right? So how do we prepare students for jobs which they may not be doing tomorrow? So of course the education has to be broader and it has to be inclusive and all of that. So our goal, our priority is engage with tomorrow today. How do we engage with students to teach them what's happening? And these are just some examples, pictures of kids we've been working, and as I said, we have over 3 million, and it starts, and Marie is actually going to touch upon more on that. Actually, this is very interesting, there's Danielle Boyer on the, Marie knows her, who's been doing a lot of work around engineering. So we do that, we do our part on that. The third priority I talked about was the entrepreneurship and innovation, and we have good examples of here, and they will talk about this. By the way, this is RB. I have one of these in our office. This is out of Pasadena, California, and sometimes they don't let me ride it too much because it becomes a legal challenge for them if I fall or something. But it's a last mile challenge problem. So last year when I was here, we talked about SolidWorks for entrepreneurs in India. We launched this program, if you will, and this is just sort of a report card. I'm reporting back to you guys, if you will. We have during that period, we have over 300 applications on it. I believe 135 PMR? Is that correct? 135. So 135 startups are part of the program, and the program is very simple. We believe that we want to make those startups successful, and money is the hardest thing at that point, and that's the last thing the startup should be worrying about because they have to do the innovation, etc. So we try to make it a little easier. So we provide our whole portfolio of products at no cost to startups for a year, and then we evaluate. But more than the product, I'd say we also provide the connections and the network. And I have so many examples of how we do that, where we can help connect with manufacturers or other entrepreneurs, or even sometimes the VC money with the workforce of the future, the students and therein alike. And the last one is just fostering innovation across in every way we can. So that's all I have. Thank you.
What we have done, then we want you to hear from our customers. So I would request and tell what his company does and how we have been a small piece in the whole process.
Product we launched, and to take a little bit about the history and where I'm from and what I do at Wire. So I'm born and brought up in Chennai, and I worked as a chassis engineer designing braking systems, actually. One for food, another for liquids. Doesn't mean that we would not do anything outside of vacuum insulation, but that's been our USP, and that's where we started. And the third product in that category is something like storage jars. The kind of the good thing about these are you could stack them up, and you could actually have one hot and one cold. Whereas in a lunchbox, you cannot mix them up. You just will ruin your food by doing that. And last month, actually, we launched 2 new products. Again, something like a vacuum insulated tumbler, which you could use on a day-to-day basis, serving for your guests or at home or even for individual use. And then completely different altogether is Bluetooth low energy based tracking device. For all the forgetful people out there, it'll help you to track your keys, wallets, and any kind of thing that you attach it to. So that's a little bit about the products we have and launched in the market. Some of the key attributes are the materials we choose are of the highest quality for the function, and our products are more aspirational, so we pay more emphasis on the aesthetics part. And the brake engineer in me is focusing too much, or I would be focusing too much in my day-to-day work on the so-called vacuum technology. So it's nothing but vacuum insulation, but the amount of vacuum, how we maintain it, and how it's being held in the product is the key. So that's our patented vacuum technology out there. We started with the Indian market in 2016, and after like 8 months into the company making business in India, we got a lot of requests from USA and also Middle East. So in 2018, if I'm not wrong, that's when we started our international operations. And since then, the journey has been great. We are constantly adding new markets, and right now it's about 16 countries that we sell. India remains our biggest market and our primary focus too, and it will continue to be. This month, actually, we've launched TV ads too. So, yeah. So that's great news. Hope it drives the sales up too. So this is about the company, what products we have, and where we operate. So the next section is where I'm going to talk about what goes into making Maya products and how we integrate SolidWorks and how it's been helpful. So marketing team came up with this slide to just put it in perspective how the product looks. Okay, so I like to share a honest feedback or the truth actually. I have not been a SolidWorks user from day one. I've used every other 3D modeling softwares. I don't know why, but all the feedback I used to get is from my team. And it's been great so far. So many of you think like, why we need to use 3D modeling software or software like SolidWorks in making lunchboxes or other consumer goods product. Back in when I was doing braking system design, there I've used quite a lot of tools. But the fundamental difference, actually I would not say difference, the similarity is there I had to figure out how to let the heat away faster. Here I have to just do the opposite and try to keep it inside so that I could retain, or we could retain, the performance of the product. And as I said, we put more emphasis on the aesthetics, and our product is more of an aspirational product. So we work with industrial designers who are based out of Europe and Japan, etc. And luckily for us, they've been using SolidWorks as a tool to share information with us. And the way they start is coming up with renderings and some free-form structures, and then it gets translated into a detailed design. So that's what I'm talking about. So first, the process of the journey starts with the concepts. And from the concepts, the team in Chennai, where we have about 15 engineers in my team, what we do is we try to convert that into a product that could be taken up for manufacturing and for making prototypes. So we call it as a detailed design. So what it means is basically we have to make sure that the right material is chosen, and is it going to meet our requirements, and that do the things fit properly, or is it easy to open, is it easy to close, and will manufacturing have any problems. So we've been using SolidWorks from the get-go, from day one, and actually even before starting Bayern, even the German company, we've been using SolidWorks. So it's been a 5-6 year long association for me with SolidWorks. And when we do, we also use those simulation tools, which provides us easy information about what we have designed and what we have chosen, or
how we do that is via Annie. It's this device that you see here. This is the world's first, the problem that we're solving, and then come to the solution. Yeah. So the basic need for this tool is that the braille literacy rate around the world is abysmal. So when you get into an elevator, you will typically find tactile buttons or braille written everywhere. You have pharmaceutical packaging, medicines with braille on them. In general, braille is the de facto standard for tactile accessibility. Wherever you see text, you have braille, and that's just how governments, organizations, even event spaces like this, how the environment around us tries to be accessible. But the braille literacy rate is really, really low. In India, it's less than 1%. In the US, it's less than 10%. And in the UK, it's less than 4%. This is despite all of the investment that goes into making spaces disabled friendly. It's not enough to make the space disabled friendly. It's also enough to raise the standards of education that we deliver across the world to make sure that people can take advantage of these. In India, you have massive camps that are distributing braille books and things like that. And of course, India is a huge country with really large numbers. So even if you do get access to 1% of the population, that is a huge number. But the fact is, if 100 blind people use an elevator, only one of them is going to be able to read the buttons. And that's really not done in the 21st century. Additionally, braille literacy rates correlate to employability, independence, and in general quality of life for visually impaired people. So the basic problem with how braille has been taught is that braille being a tactile language, it needs a trained teacher to hold the child's hand and drag their fingertips over the raised dots, and it takes continuous repetition of this. There is no self-learning, there is no consumption of information. The way you and I learn how to read and write, we spend more than 2 years just continuously practicing our alphabets, and there is tremendous repetition and memorization so that when we're learning about photosynthesis, we don't worry about is this letter an H or an N. We're thinking about chlorophyll and the mechanism of how it works rather than wondering what is this alphabet and why is it confusing me. And those are the same things that blind children also need to understand. However, because of a lack of tutors, the literacy rates are very abysmal. So what we have done is designed a solution, Annie. Annie is a complete braille learning device. It's named after Anne Sullivan, Helen Keller's teacher, and as such is a very relatable teacher voice for every child, because Helen Keller is really every child, every village school that I've been to, every remote part of India that I've been to, Helen Keller is the inspiration for every blind child, and a sign of what they can be and what they can do given the right opportunities. And so we've designed Annie to help children learn how to read, write, and type in braille. We have large cells that help children learn dot combinations. Basically, this is something that is done traditionally with marbles and wooden slates, or sometimes egg boxes and ping pong balls. And we have designed special modules to help children learn the dot patterns and how they're configured with respect to each other, what patterns represent which letters. We have more than 200 hours of content in 5 languages each, and we teach the dot combinations, we teach standard size braille. So I've given out my cards to a few of you. You'll notice that the braille on it, the standard size braille, you cannot read it, you cannot even decipher the differences between the 2 letters, because that is something that takes a lot of practice. It's not a skill we have to begin with. So even for children, it takes tremendous amount of practice. In fact, it's something you and I do too. It's everyone in this room looks at that slide and says, that shape right there with 2 slanting lines and 1 horizontal line, it's an A. But that association took years and years of education and continuous bombardment to begin with. And that's something that blind children are deprived of, because we continuously read signs, we read things on the road, we read documents, we read labels, we were continuously reading. And that is something that the child needs as well in the initial bits. So Annie helps them learn how to read, how to write. Braille is written from right to left. So you're supposed to emboss mirror images of every letter from right to left traditionally, and then turn the paper over and read the raised dots. So Annie helps you practice that and learn that, and we also teach vocabulary, spellings, and stuff like that. So essentially, we are the child's learning companion in their early years when they're learning, letters, numbers, basic words, things like that. And it's a connected device. It can be monitored easily. So we have an entire dashboard connected to it, which makes it possible for normal teachers, mainstream teachers, to play a part in the child's learning journey. We have gamified content that brings in the spirit of collaboration in what is otherwise a very isolating process. And we have the entire Annie learning ecosystem that helps teachers manage multiple students at the same time. This is really the USP, I would say, in that it changes the method of instruction from 1:1 hand holding to more of a setup like this, where let's say one person is talking and everybody's getting the information at the same time. So that's what we do in our smart classes, where the teacher can teach multiple students at the same time. That really, really radically transforms the speed at which children can learn, the kind of impact that one teacher can have by multiplying it across students, and also by enabling practice and self-learning. We help students progress on their own while giving them the appropriate remedial instruction. So we've had a lot of traction in India. When we first started out, I would say I've been working on this for the last 5 years, since 2014, and we only formed the company after graduating in 2016. But we've had a tremendous support from and response from various governments in India, and as well, I mean, we were actually building in we were building in consultation with Royal National Institute for the Blind in London, because obviously from the solution delivery perspective, I think developed countries are much better at accessibility and how to prioritize it right from the education step to later consumption and general living. But very happy to say that Indian governments and primarily UK for now have been very, very enthusiastic about implementing new technology in this space.